They are two words with the power to comfort and devastate, to heal wounds and topple empires. I'm sorry. The public's demand for that simple phrase can often be crushing. Just ask Lance Armstrong, XL Meats, and General David Petraeus. Generations would pass before the phrase would reach the ears of victims of wartime internment, thalidomide, residential schools, eugenics, and government brainwashing experiments, just to name a few. Why is it so hard and often expensive to say I'm sorry? In a moment, meet communications expert Bob Reed with insights on public apologies gone right and not so much. We'll discuss celebrities and contrition and then dig deeper into the spiritual side of saying I'm sorry. This is Context, a look at life beyond the headlines.
In the world of public relations, there are few tasks more daunting than the public apology. Last November, in preparation for this show, we interviewed Catherine McLean of Livestrong Foundation about its founder, Lance Armstrong. And that was at a time after Armstrong had resigned from the foundation, but before his famous interview with Oprah Winfrey. For a public relations perspective on that ongoing story and other famous apologies and non-apologies, Bob Reed is with us. He is Chief Media Strategist and Media Coach at Veritas Communications. Bob, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Lance Armstrong. It didn't look like he was going to confess. What changed?
I think everything changed around Lance Armstrong in ways that he never thought were going to happen. Things that he never thought would catch up with him finally did. I think that was apparent in his interview with Oprah Winfrey when he essentially said, we never thought we'd get caught. We thought we'd just be able to keep going. And as that started to unfurl, and then as Livestrong, his cancer foundation, asked him to step aside, and then the sponsors started dropping him. It was one domino after another. There was no other route for him to go at that point.
I thought the domino that tipped it all, though, was his son, his oldest son. And he talked about the impact this had on his kids having to stick up for him, that he wasn't a liar. He said, you don't have to do that anymore. An incredible public airing of some very private issues. But when you watched the interview, did you feel it was genuine?
I thought going in he had two things he needed to do. One was admission, and the other was contrition. The admission part seemed to come fairly easily, or about as easy as it could come for a Lance Armstrong. Yeah, and obviously that was the whole point, right? He certainly wouldn't sit down with Oprah Winfrey and continue to deny. So that was relatively easy. I don't think he followed through on the contrition, though. I think he only got it half right. He said that he recognized his need to apologize. And at one point said, I'm going to spend the rest of my life apologizing for what I've done. But we didn't really actually ever hear one from him.
Not in that interview, really. No, and he said, I will go to that person and I will go to this person. But to look at the camera and say to all, the people who were invested in his career, I'm sorry, it didn't happen. It
was the moment I was waiting for that never came. And not because I was looking for, some kind of sensational, teary-eyed moment or anything, but I was waiting for him to really step up, and especially to those who idolized him, Countless children and people with cancer who looked at him, literally put him on a pedestal, and then realized it was all built on falsehoods.
In November, I spoke with Vice President of Communications and External Affairs at that foundation he loves so much. He called it his sixth child. That's how much he loves Livestrong. And I asked her if Lance's legacy would be part of the foundation's story going forward. Let's watch what they said. Are you not going to come clean with the Lance story in the Livestrong story?
I think the foundation has always been incredibly transparent in its communications. And we remain very, very proud of Lance's philanthropic efforts. Because of his commitment, we've been able to serve close to 2.5 million people and help them with those struggles that we mentioned that surround a cancer diagnosis, whether it's emotional or an insurance challenge or financial.
Well, Bob, should Lance be part of the Live Strong story?
I don't see how the foundation can keep him as part of the story. I mean, look, it's never going to be lost on people that this was the Lance Armstrong organization. The yellow bracelet was far too ubiquitous. You know, that association is there, but he's damaged goods now. He's a toxic brand, and for them to continue to have him in a place of prominence raises a lot of troubling questions for people who want to continue to support the good work that the foundation does.
So he's made the mistake so badly, he's gone.
Unless something dramatic changes, unless Lance Armstrong can somehow find that reconciliation that he seeks, and there hasn't been a sign that he's on that path thus far, I'd be very surprised. I don't see how that could happen, because I'm sure what happened, I'm sure Livestrong was the first organization that really felt the backlash as the, pardon the pun, wheels started to come off the Lance Armstrong story, right? Unlike some of the corporate sponsors, the corporate brands that he was associated with, this is a charitable organization. People write checks, people donate right out of their wallets. I'll bet you they were the first ones hearing, as long as that guy's part of this thing, you're never getting another dime from me.
Let's play another clip. I'm asking their own PR maintenance of the story when it broke that Lance had stepped down from Livestrong. Take a listen.
Years ago, Lance and the leadership of the organization recognized that in order to be a force for good for generations to come, for decades to come, the foundation and its brand, Livestrong, would have to grow much larger than one single individual and be able to stand independently of an athlete.
Okay, so you have mentioned publicly that the support for Livestrong remains solid. You have received some negative feedback. Tell us about managing the public perception.
Well, as you can imagine, I mean, this is a situation that any charity would be hoping to avoid. However, the bottom line is the services that the foundation provides can literally make the difference between life and death for some people.
So to those of us who thought Lance Armstrong should have apologized, what would you say?
Well, that's a tough question. I think for us at the foundation, we're focused on the future, charting a very strong course so that we are able to continue providing those free services that cancer survivors and their families and patients depend upon.
Well, Bob, it was an awkward interview because of that apology that was hanging in the air. But since then, they have put out a press conference or a press release and said, Lance apologized to our staff, and we've accepted his apology in order to, just as she said there, move forward and chart a strong, independent course. That really must be their only option, correct?
That's all they can do. Yeah, I mean, we even heard in there she was still defending him and his work at the outset a little bit, you know, or paying tribute to the work he did in establishing the foundation and getting it going. But then very quickly in her own comments, the focus shifted to Livestrong being bigger than any one individual and being able to stand on its own, and the services and the help it provides to people was all about the organization and no longer that one individual.
What is the correct advice for doing an apology well?
I think it has to have three main components. It's got to be polite, it's got to be unequivocal, and it's got to be sincere. I said polite, I meant prompt. It's got to be prompt. Polite helps as well, but prompt is important. If too much time passes from the offense to the apology, then you run the risk of being seen to be dragged into it. It's something that you have to do rather than something that you want to do.
But if you blow it on prompt, I still think polite is okay too. It's better late than never, not?
There's a degree of that. I think the three things, you know, work together. If sincere was my third point, if it's utterly and overwhelmingly sincere and maybe a little late in coming, then okay. I think sincere can offset tardiness if there's a degree of that. And then the one in the middle, unequivocal.
Yeah.
You can't have any weasel words around it.
But yeah.
Or if some took offense somehow at something I had done or said, or if they inferred something, then you're into the weasel words, right, that detract from the power of it. Yeah.
Bob Reed at Veritas Communications, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Okay, now it's time to find out your opinion. Should public figures be held to more stringent standards of morality than everyone else? Yes or no? Join the conversation. Send your answers by phone, email, Facebook, or Twitter. Our studio audience is taking a live vote, and we'll have those results in a moment. But coming up, how to respond when the system lets you down and doesn't apologize. We'll speak with Rick Moore about his 15-year fight on behalf of his son and their landmark Supreme Court victory. That's next.